Hello and welcome to Cooking for Wellness with the Central Ohio Urology Group. Tonight we have Chef Jason and our dietitian Lori covering superfoods full of antioxidants. And I am Darlene. I'm the program manager here with Cancer Support Community Central Ohio. So we are going to be doing the superfoods full of antioxidants. Chef?
Perfect. Thank you again for joining us tonight for tonight's class. We're always excited to have you to be with us and for us to be able to share these wonderful recipes with each one of you. Hopefully these recipes, even though you might be at home or you've been at home for the last few months, hopefully they're able to be very beneficial for you in your journey of wellness, even while you're at home, and whether you're cooking for yourself or cooking for family. Utilizing a lot of these recipes will really be not only just fun and delicious, but also maintaining your health. And that's what we're all about. This month, and starting with today, we will be dealing with superfoods that have great antioxidants. Antioxidants are usually used or a way to be able to rid the body of what we call toxins or free radicals in the body. So it helps all those different things that are in the body that are just roaming and can cause illness and sickness. And so this is a perfect way to be able to introduce your body to natural type of ingredients that will be very beneficial for your overall health. The first recipe that we're going to share is a really great, now the good thing about this first recipe, it's a peach cherry type of cobbler. And to be able to utilize these two, what we call stone fruits, the peaches and the cherries, have some really great nutritional value that Lori will definitely discuss with us. But to marry those flavors together, this could be a great breakfast. This could be a great snack. This could be a great dessert. So it's very versatile in how you can actually use these things. Now we call these stone fruit because, of course, both of these, the cherries and the peaches, have what we call pits. And so they are very prevalent late spring, early summerish. Around the time of year, you'll start to see them. When you start to see them show up in your grocery store, you see your plums, nectarines, peaches, cherries, apricots. Those are all stone fruits. And so they're really good, and they're a great seasonal type of ingredient. I know one of the first things is, especially when it comes to peaches and cherries, is because they are stone fruit, how do I get the stone out of them? So really simple is we'll start if you have a peach. This is one of the easiest ways that I found to easily get your slices or so out without tearing up the peach. I usually just take my knife and I cut all the way, almost like when I do a avocado. So I cut all the way around it. Like I said, the same way you would if you were cutting an avocado, which has a pit. So I've cut it across, and then now I've turned it and I've cut it across the opposite way. So now I have 4 sections. Then I'll take and I'll cut another way around. So I'm almost going to make almost like a pie. So where I'm going to have at the end of this about 8 slices. And I'm just going right around that pit. So once I do that, I should be able to pull one of these slices out. Let's find one. Yes, pull one out. And then from there, you just push one over, pull it out. Push one over, pull it out. Push one over. When they're not stubborn. And pull it out, push one over. And so all this is doing, I'm just going around the whole peach, and now I'm pulling my slices apart until you get to that last one. And then all that's left is the pit, which you can throw away. So now I have at least about 8 slices. And then if you want them to be a thinner slices, you can go ahead and cut them into thinner slices from there. Now, while I'm doing this, though, Lori, we talk about stone fruits and more specifically, we talk about these peaches and these cherries. But what is the nutritional value as far as antioxidants go along with these wonderful, flavorful ingredients?
Yeah, they are super flavorful in my opinion. I love that we're in the time of year that they taste phenomenal. Um, Peaches have a compound that aid digestion by way of helping production of short chain fatty acids in the gut, which maintains balance in the microbiome. So, you know, I think they're so luscious and so flavorful that I think people think they're an indulgence. Full of antioxidants, but they really are, and they have some really lovely nutritional benefits. Cherries are just as effective for maintaining your well-being. They, number one, a serving is 14 cherries. I don't know, people ask me that a lot. I think that has to do with like them thinking that they're highly sugared or something like that. So, 14 cherries is quite a bit for a serving. Not only are they high in vitamin C, potassium, and fiber, but there's research around like using tart cherry juice for tissue recovery, so tissue repair. So it kind of spans in like if you've had surgery, a lot of benefit could come from having a few ounces of tart cherry juice afterwards for having the tissues knit back together if there was some kind of incision. Or it's also been applied to like muscle recovery after really hard workouts. So lots of good stuff between cherries and peaches.
I've heard that also. Is it also true? I've also heard when it comes to cherries that they also have our natural like melatonin. So like drinking 100% cherry juice at night before bed helps to release the natural melatonin and get a good night's sleep for those who have insomnia.
Yes, that is one thing that's been associated with is an increased production in melatonin. I always kind of tell people to watch that though. It's very carbohydrate dense, the juice, and there's not much fiber, of course, because it's the juice. So you want to do, between 2 and 3 ounces. You don't want to like have a glass of cherry juice.
We have a question in regards to the variety of peaches. It says, which variety of peaches are easier or harder to remove the pit?
When she says variety, like these are just a regular Georgia peach. Most peaches they should all have the same amount. It just depends on how ripe or how unripe they are. But as far as most varieties, it's going to be about the same way to remove that pit. You just use that same technique that I just showed. So once you cut those slices, that helps to loosen up from around it and then be able to move those slices away from it.
So it really depends upon ripeness as opposed to variety.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
Yeah. And a follow-up question with that was cling peaches?
I guess what's the question on that?
Well, it just says, and if you can unmute yourself.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I don't know if cling peaches indicates that they cling to the pit and they're harder to remove.
No.
Oh.
That is just the variety name. No, they're not named for them clinging to the pit.
Okay.
I think, actually, I just looked this up. This is news to me. So Freestone peaches are those variety where the pit is separated from the flesh. Semi-cling are in between fruit where the flesh is attached but not wholly embedded into the pit. And cling peaches are the type where the fruit is woven into the pit.
Woven.
I have never heard those 3 distinctions in my life.
That is news. That is definitely news to hear.
Sounds like Freestone is the one to go for if you can find it.
Yes, but if you go to your local grocery store, for the most part, you're gonna really just find your regular stoned peaches.
And they won't tell you what variety.
I don't think so.
No.
Okay. Thank you.
So now we're going to add our cherries in here, and this is the other thing. Now, of course, you can get already pitted cherries, but if you see right now, especially this time of year, because they are seasonal produce or fruit, you'll see a lot of the fresh cherries. And of course, it's always about getting that great flavor and good ripeness when you're getting a seasonal product. So I do have some unpitted cherries. If you find some, and if you don't use fresh, you can definitely use, if you find some frozen, but I just recommend, especially this time, if you're going to use fresh peaches, use fresh cherries. But this recipe, you can use frozen peaches and frozen cherries. But like I said, if you can, since it is in season, I would use them as best as you can, or what you have the capacity to get. So if you have fresh cherries that have pits in them, one of the most tedious things is how to de-pit cherries. Now, I just showed you how to do the peaches, but cherries, the easiest thing is, of course, you could take a small paring knife and do like we did the peaches and cut around it, or like an avocado, cut around it and twist off, and you have your half, and then you can just pluck out that little pit because it's so small. Now, that's one way. That can be time consuming if you did that. Or another way is if you have like a chopstick or a, what I have here is like a little wooden toothpick rod, and I just take the stem out, and where the stem was, I just stick this little wooden rod and literally just push it into the pit. And sometimes I've seen where if you do this over a small mouth bottle, then you can literally push the pit right through, put your cherry right on top. Like for instance, if this was a bottle, I would stick my cherry right on top, and then you can just kind of push your pit right through the bottom of it, and all your pits would go into the bottom of that bottle. Like if it's a water bottle or something like that, if you have an extra 20-ounce water bottle, then you can just push that right through, and then all your pits collect in the bottom of that. So that's one way. If you have, like I said, a small paring knife, that's another way. So there's several ways that you can be able to easily remove those pits.
Never seen that before. Wow.
So that's an easy way to do that. So we have our cherries and we have our peaches in here. Now is the fun part, is we get to flavor them. Now they're going to have some great flavor on their own, but we're going to add some, what we call some nice warmth and some nice spice to it with some cinnamon, and we have some cloves and some nutmeg. You can add, if you have some ground ginger, that would be good and really pop in this too. Allspice, that would pop in here also. So you can switch those up, but this is just a base. The cinnamon, ground cloves, cinnamon, and nutmeg. Just going to brighten these up. And then we're going to add, we're going to add some dried cranberries also to this. If you had some dried blueberries, you can add those in here also, or you can omit these. It's just a different layer of flavor that you can add to this particular cobbler. Then we're going to add a little maple syrup. Now this is going to keep this nice and clean, and it's just going to tie it all in together. If you don't have maple syrup or you're not a fan of it, you can definitely use some honey to bring out some natural sweetness in this. Most people would like to add brown sugar, but if we want to keep this nice and clean and, healthier, I would suggest the honey or the maple syrup. The maple syrup, as opposed to the honey, is going to give you a nice, richer type of flavor against these peaches and these cherries. So we just mix that all up. And once that's all mixed up, then we can add that to a nice baking dish.
I do like the cinnamon addition. We know that cinnamon helps keep our cells sensitive to insulin, so it helps in insulin sensitivity. And of course, the maple syrup is a really nice natural sweetener. Like you already said, it keeps this dish clean and just whole natural food. So that was our objective with just the maple syrup and the cinnamon.
So once you've put that in your baking dish, then you cover it with some foil. You stick it in your oven about 350 and roughly about 20 minutes or so till your fruit gets nice and softened. Those peaches get nice and softened and starts to create a nice kind of syrupy type of texture in there. While that's happening, you can make what we call your Cobbler Topping, which we'll make with oats. And so all we're going to do is we have some nice oats, and these are I think they're thick cut oats. If you have some regular oats, that's definitely fine. No particular there. So we have oats. And then we didn't use all of the spice, so you're only going to use about half of the spice that you put on the peaches and the cherries. So the rest of that, we're going to mimic that in the topping, so that that flavor profile goes all the way through your dish. So you're going to mimic that. So we're going to add that same spice with the cloves, cinnamon, and nutmeg into our topping. We'll sprinkle that over, and then the maple syrup. Now the maple syrup, not only is it going to give flavor to the topping, but it's also going to act as a binder to this oatmeal topping. So we're going to add the maple syrup in here. Now, if you look at the directions to the that you see there in the recipe, it says then bake off the oats on a baking sheet from there with just these things in there. But I took the liberty of let's combine two steps so that we can make less steps as possible. So later in the recipe, it talks about you taking the pecans and brown sugar and cooking those off or roasting those off in the oven as well. We're going to combine two steps. So we have our oatmeal with the spices and the maple syrup, but we're going to go ahead and add our brown sugar also in here, and we're going to add our pecans, and this is going to be all in one type of topping. And so they'll roast up, because all you're going to do is get a little color on the oatmeal. You're going to allow that brown sugar and the maple syrup to caramelize, and it's going to basically allow this to act as a glue and get you a nice crumb type of topping to go over this. Now, another great addition would be if you have just a hint of vanilla. If you have any vanilla extract, add a little teaspoon of vanilla extract to that. That's going to give you another depth of flavor. And so we're going to put that on a lined baking sheet so that we can make sure that it's all single layer and make sure it's good and spread out, no clumps. And then once this bakes, matter of fact, we'll stick it right in the oven with our cobbler. Once that bakes up, then now you want to watch that because it does have the pecans in there. Now you have the cobbler, the peaches and cherries. They'll take probably about 20 minutes or so. You're not going to have your oatmeal topping in there for that same amount of time. So you may only have that in there for about 5 to 7 minutes. Like I said, it's at 350. So you just want to watch it. If you have to, go in there, check it, stir it around so that everything is evenly browning and coming together. And then you'll pull that topping out of the oven, and you'll cool it off, and it'll actually come out like this. And then we'll add it to our peach cobbler. So while that's baking off and getting nice and delicious, then we'll go on to our next recipe if there aren't any questions.
I just wanted to talk about the oats for a minute. I know they're rounding out this beautiful cobbler, and they, again, are feeling like an indulgence with seasoning them and sweeten them. But the soluble fiber that you're getting from those oats is super healthy. It's beta-glucan, which is a soluble fiber that can lower your the low density lipoproteins. So when you're talking about your cholesterol and your lipid profile, oats are really helpful in that regard. So not only do they help with that lipid profile, but they're really helping to balance the microbiome with that soluble fiber.
See, so this is a totally round
Yes.
about dish that, like you said, that it may seem like it's a indulgence, but at the same time, I mean, you're getting great flavor but you're getting great nutritional value. And then caloric wise, what does it look like? You know, a serving.
You know what? I don't have the recipe pulled up. Darlene, do you have those?
I do.
Okay.
So one slice of the cobbler is 394 calories, 8 grams of fat, 10 grams of protein, 0 cholesterol, 75 grams of carbs, 8 milligrams of sodium, and 9 grams of fiber.
Okay. So that's not nothing, close to 400 calories. I might encourage everyone to do half a serving.
Yeah. Like I said, just a nice little treat. to, I wouldn't, have a whole, and then, most people, when you think of cobbler, you're like, oh, and it's summertime too. So you're like, I want to add some ice cream to it. So I would, take a look at that.
That is
You
natural
could,
tendency, right? I mean,
I would add maybe like a dollop of like vanilla Greek yogurt or something like that to the top. If you want that kind of creaminess, that'll kind of go with, the hot cobbler.
yeah, that's a good idea.
All right. If there are no other questions pertaining to that, we'll move on to our next recipe, which I really like this recipe because it's a great alternative that you can use. And this is another one of those things that you could use and make for a breakfast, have some eggs or something to go with this. Or it could be a great lunch. You could use them to go with a salad. So there's many different ways. And that's the good thing about these is that there's many different ways that you can utilize some of these recipes in their versatility in that aspect. So these are our kale quinoa patties. And so these are a nice little treat. You can make up several of them, like I said, and have them for lunch or maybe have them for dinner or so, or a nice snack. But they're very simple to make with some good quinoa. And so what we've done is with the quinoa, and we know this is a whole grain, that we've cooked it off previously. And anybody knows, and we've discussed this several times, that we cook this in vegetable broth so that we're able to infuse, things like rice or your quinoa, any of those type of grains. They become very absorbent when you are cooking them. Even pasta, if you're cooking pasta, those things absorb what they're cooked in. So if you were to cook the quinoa or rice or pasta in water, then it's just going to absorb that. And since water has no flavor, hence your rice or whatever your grain is won't either. But another way to infuse flavor into that is we cook this in broth. And then I usually throw like a bay leaf in there because that's going to flavor that broth even more. And that flavor is going to now infuse into as it cooks and absorbs into my quinoa. So we've got some good flavor into this. When you do that, that also cuts down on the need to add a whole bunch of salt, and it allows you to cut down on sodium because you're adding flavor. And the only sodium that you're going to need is just to enhance whatever flavor that you've already created. So I always say that, find ways to add flavor and then use salt just to enhance it, not to use it to flavor whatever you're making. So we've done that. And we have our quinoa here. It's nice and cooked and cooled. And the best trick for cooling down quinoa or rice or so quickly is if you have a colander or a small hold colander, is to take that quinoa after it's cooked. As soon as you've taken it off of the fire, is to immediately take that and put that in your small hold. If you have like a mesh strainer, put it in there, run some cold water over it immediately, and then let it just drain. Let it just sit there in the mesh colander and let it just drain off. Or you could take it immediately, put it on a baking sheet, spread out, and then put it in the refrigerator so it's able to cool down all at once. Because it's spread out, it'll be able to cool quicker and faster. So we've cooled that down, let it drain so there's not a lot of moisture in there. Then we're going to start building these flavors. So we also have the kale, because this wouldn't be a kale quinoa patty if we don't have the kale. So we have the kale. Now the trick is that so that you don't have to do multiple types of things, is that when the quinoa finished cooking, or when it's close to being finished cooking, you take your chopped up kale, you stick it right on top in the pot with the lid, take it off of the eye, and then what that's going to do is going to, in a sense, steam the kale so that now you have, it's not going to be as tough or bitter when you put it into this mixture. And so, of course, when you go to cool down the quinoa, then you'll cool down the kale also and let it drain any moisture out. So we kind of got a 2-in-1 in that aspect. Add that.
And I was going to talk about kale for a second, just because there's so much to say about that superfood. First of all, a serving only has 33 calories and 2 grams of fiber. So that's really, for the amount of energy that it brings in comparison to the amount of nutrients, it's actually unbelievable. 206% of the daily value for vitamin A. So your beta carotene is 206% with 33 calories.
Wow.
So 684% of the daily value for vitamin K. So this is why people that are on a blood thinner, you have to pay attention to kale big time, because it is a super powerhouse for vitamin K. One of the interesting things, though, is that it's so high in vitamin K, but it's low in oxalate. So people that have ever had any trouble with like a kidney stone that is correlating with their oxalate intake, kale is very different than spinach. So a lot of times we think, oh, green leafies, they're all kind of the same, but there's a huge difference in the oxalate between kale and spinach. So that can be a big determining factor for some people's diet. 134% of the daily value for vitamin C with 33 calories. So not only does it have all of those vitamins in huge numbers, it has quercetin and camphorol, which are 2 really powerful anti-inflammatory, anti-cancer, antidepressants. So they are compounds that have been correlated with all of those beautiful things. Plus, it's a source of minerals, so calcium. So people don't think about their green leafies when they think about calcium. They always think about dairy. But kale is a great source of calcium, potassium, and magnesium. So
it is truly a superfood there.
It really is. And by the time you put it together with the quinoa, which is has about twice as much fiber as a lot of the comparable grains, it's higher in protein and it's higher in magnesium and iron than other proteins. So it really is a superfood. And by the time you put the kale and the quinoa together, it's a great step.
Great. So all we've done is we've added to our bowl. So we added our quinoa and our nice steamed kale that's been cooled down. And then we added in some eggs that we scrambled, some Parmesan. Now I use some shredded Parmesan. If you have grated Parmesan, you can definitely use that in here too. If you have dairy issues or sensitivities, then you can definitely leave that out. And then we added some salt, pepper, some garlic. We use some minced garlic, but once again, if you just have garlic powder, you can add some garlic powder. Now, people always ask, well, how much and what's the conversion compared to the, you know what, really, garlic is one of those things. One, it's really good for you. Now, depending on who you're going to be around or who you're quarantining with, they may not like you to have as much garlic, but it's good for you and good for the body. And so I always do garlic to your own preference. Some people actually love garlic, and so they may look at the recipe and say, oh, that's not enough. So they add more. That's not going to hurt you. You know, it's not going to hurt the recipe if you add more garlic or not. Like I said, if you are a person who loves garlic, then, you know, add more garlic if that's what you prefer. If you like less garlic, if you don't like garlic at all, I just love garlic for the fact that the flavor that it lends and the layer of flavor that it's going to add to that. So that really is more of a preference, as I say to people, in that aspect. And if there's any other type of seasonings, like if you notice, it's only really garlic, salt, pepper in this. Now, if you were me you would add a little smoked paprika or something of that nature to this. So we're going to stir that up, and we're going to chop up a little green onion. Once again, I know one person that's on this stream right now who is not fond of onions. So you can leave these or omit these out. If you have a yellow onion or so, you can definitely substitute that instead of the green spring onions. But we like using the spring onions because one, they're a great seasonal type of ingredient, and they're not as strong as those other onions, and they'll marry really well in this and not kind of be something that sticks out. So I'm going to chop up some green onions in there to add that flavor profile. And that garlic and the green onions, they're all in the same family. So they're going to, when I was talking about garlic being good for you, Lori, we've talked about this before, but garlic and like those green onions and chives and things like that, how do they lend to the overall goodness to this dish?
Right. So the allium family, that's what the things you've mentioned are all part of. And it's amazing. There's an antiviral, antibacterial component to all of those foods. And since ancient times, they've been utilized for those properties. So people use them to heal.
See, so the next time someone wants to tease you about the amount of garlic, just tell them that you're just healing your body.
Exactly. This is my medicine, people.
This is my medicine. So we've got that nice and mixed up. And from there, take you a spoon or a quarter cup or so, and you can make your patties. Once again, we start with a quarter cup. If you want a larger patty, if this is for your dinner, then maybe you want to use a third cup or so, and whatever, once again, is your preference. And so we're using about a quarter cup, and we're just going to literally make these patties. Now that egg and the breadcrumbs in here is going to act as the binder. We have our pan that has been nice and heated with the oil that, as we've always mentioned, we have the hot pan, hot oil, so that when we put this in there, we're going to get a great sear. And that sound we like to hear. Like so. We'll make another patty. And the thing is, a quarter cup is a decent size because once you kind of flatten it out, depending on how thick you want them, but it's a nice size patty that you can definitely have. And I think this is something that the kids would also definitely like too.
I think so too.
So you can get the kids involved, you can get them and something different for them, create a little assembly line and have the kids helping out making patties, same way you would like if you were making meatballs or so. And then, kids like stuff like that looks fun and cool, and then they don't even realize that they're getting something that's nutritionally good for them.
Exactly.
We'll make a couple here. And don't worry, I've taken out my oats and pecans so that we wouldn't burn them. We'll just make a couple of these patties.
I think maybe some sauteed onions and peppers on top of those patties would be nice.
Oh, yes, definitely. Add some great color. So we've got some nice patties there. And because your pan and your oil is hot, then you should be able to get some nice crust on the bottom of them. Should get a good, nice sear on them. And they smell wonderful. Like I said, all we did was put salt, pepper, and some garlic. So they're going to have a really good flavor while also having all those power-packed nutrients in here. Let's see. And I usually wait because you want that nice crust on the end, just like if you're making a hamburger. You want to get that nice sear on there that's going to lock everything together, that's going to allow everything to hold and bind together. And then once you do that, then you want to, once it seems like it's stabilized, then you flip that. Oh, that's beautiful. Nice golden color. And you can kind of see from the bottom when it's time to flip it, when you got that nice golden color on there. Because if you flip it too soon, it may fall apart on you. Yes. This is the fun in food. Once you learn the right techniques, you can do anything when it comes to food. And you can have this type of fun with it. And this is something different but easy. So we're going to let those hang out. Are there any questions so far about that particular dish? It was real simple. Like Lori said, you know, if you saute some peppers and onions to go on top of there, if you're a spice fan like me, you know, you get some sriracha and, you know, serve it and drizzle over it. I'm going to actually, while that's happening, I'm going to make up something real quick that I think will be good. Almost like an avocado sauce that we can drizzle over it. That I think will go good. And then, you know, Lori, so if we add avocado, there's adding a healthy fat.
Yes, absolutely. Healthy fat and more fiber, which is my favorite thing.
And so we're really just doing maybe about a minute or so on both sides. I'm making sure my fire is turned down because we don't want these to burn. We want that nice golden deliciousness to it. So I'm just taking a half avocado.
So Jason, there is a question about, did you use only the green part of the green onion, or did you use the white too?
I do not use the white part. I cut off the white part, and then I cut off the top part of the green onion. And what I call, then just use the light green to dark part of the green onion.
Very nice. Thank you.
And speaking of, I'm going to add some of that to this avocado. Avocado sauce. Now, if I had some cilantro, I could add some cilantro into this, really give it that. So if you have something like that on hand, that would be really good. And this is really simple. It's just avocado, a little salt, pepper. If you had some like Greek yogurt, that would be great to add here to add a little extra ness to it. If you had some lime juice, that's all. We're just adding some lime juice to this so they can blend and smooth. And everybody sees my little gadget here. And this is us just making a quick little sauce. So you want to make sure you have a nice ripe avocado. All right. We'll check on our patties. Oh, I forgot something. Let's add a little garlic to this sauce. Some garlic to that, and not as thinned out as I want. There we go. And you don't have to make this sauce. This is just a suggestion. But hey, like we said, give you a good, nice, higher fiber and healthy fats that will go delicious with this, with the quinoa and the kale.
And that would be a really lovely combination, truly. You wouldn't have to have it, but it's going to enhance for sure.
There we go. It's getting there. I want it to be a little looser. Turned our patties off. There we go. Just where we want it. Perfect. And it smells good because it's got that fresh garlic in there. All right. Now that we've got that, let's just see what it'll look like. Our patties are nice. We have that nice ground. I'll show you guys. Nice golden brown to it. Ah, we didn't lose it. And then we'll take some of our avocado sauce. Just add some to this. And if you want to add some of the Parmesan, and we have our quinoa kale patties. Simple, easy, delicious. And like I said, it's something quick that you could do and use. You could even make them with breakfast.
Mm-hmm.
However you like to utilize them. They could be a very versatile and valuable dish.
Beautiful.
All right. Any questions about that?
I don't think so.
Nope. Well, perfect.
Jason, we have a red onion question. Last week you said that red onion is not used for cooking, but just for raw salads, etc. Why is it not used in cooking?
It can be. You'll see it in some Asian dishes. It's just where it's better in a raw application. You can use anything you'd like, but because of the nature of a red onion, it's one of those things that it's better raw. You can definitely use it to cook. I've cooked raw red onions, but like I said, it's one of those things is that if you are needing onions for a saute dish or to go on something that you're cooking, it's better to use your white or your yellow onion and leave your red onions for salads or raw applications in that aspect, because they have more of a sweeter type of taste to them, and they have more crisp type of textural type of thing. All right. So maybe we'll do a tutorial on onions at another time. All right. So our next recipe is very, very simple. And we just talked about eggs going with our quinoa patties. So this is definitely something that you could use to go with this dish, the dish we just made. Now we have some great protein from the quinoa, but you add egg, or this could be a great standalone type of dish too. Everybody hears about what is it called, toad in a hole or something to that aspect. This is a take on that, but a healthier version, because if I'm not mistaken, that's usually like an egg in the center of a piece of toast or so. So this is just a different way to do that. That's a lot healthier. We got our hot pan, hot oil. Now, I'm going to you can use whatever color pepper that you would like, but I want it to be festive. So I have a red, a green, and a yellow. Now, how many of you know actually a red pepper, a green pepper is a immature red pepper?
Mm-hmm.
And like a yellow pepper or orange pepper, they're just a little bit sweeter than these other peppers. I don't know why everybody thinks when they hear the word pepper or even bell peppers that they think they're spicy. And none of these bell peppers are spicy. You just get kind of a sweeter taste as the colors go on. So we're going to cut what we call little pepper rings, and they're going to be kind of a little thick. So I'm just going to take my pepper. I've washed it off and rinsed them off really good, so that's very important. Make sure any fresh produce that you have that you've rinsed it really well. So I'm going to cut the end off. Then I'm going to cut about a 1/2 inch ring. Make sure, and if you have a little paring knife, if you need to, just make sure the little, that you've removed kind of the little veins that may still be poking out, because we want a nice circle for our egg to be able to sit in. So if you notice, about 1/2 inch or so thick ring. So we'll do that. Now don't waste that other part of the, depending on how many people you're serving or how many eggs that you're going to be having. Of course, don't get rid of the rest of that. Use that, chop it up. And I always, if I cut open a pepper and I'm not going to use the whole pepper, then I usually at least break it down as best as I can. Maybe, julienne a couple of them, maybe dice a couple of them, and then put them in a small Ziploc bag, and you can use them however you need to from there. I mean, if you want to put them in a small Ziploc bag and then make sure all the air is out and freeze them, then you have peppers for use at any time that you want. And do a couple of different variations. Like I said, julienne some, dice some up, so then you're able to have them for multiple uses already done. And you only had to work once for them.
Right. It's a really good idea to get those vegetables prepped and ready to use. I always say, make them as convenient as the chip bag. So if all you have to do is open up.
And that chip bag is very convenient.
Right. And if you get those, like you said, if you've got pepper strips in there, you might be surprised that you would be more inclined to snack on those than anything else if they're convenient and ready to go.
All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to take our pepper rings, and I got about 3 of them, and we're going to go ahead and add them into, and then we just have, like I said, very simple, nice egg, and we're just going to break that right into the center of our pepper. And this is another one of those things. Kids, they get enamored, and it's great colors too. You really have them thinking they're doing something that they can help out with, and get them to get some vegetables in for breakfast, and they'll think it's really cool to have this pepper or have this egg inside of their pepper.
I think it looks like a flour.
Yes.
So
We'll add a little bit of salt.
Like, it's high protein, you've got your vegetable there, and it's very visually appealing. That's what kind of struck me about this recipe. Like, all those eggs in those pepper rings are so beautiful.
And all we did was, once again, we added a little salt, pepper. If you were me, you would probably have a sprinkle of smoked paprika on there, because smoked paprika goes on everything, right? I understand. I did a demonstration the other day, and I was talking about that, and paprika actually did go, and I was making sweet potato fries and used paprika. And of course, I was like, smoked paprika. And so the person hosting was like, well, what if you don't? I was like, well, I mean, you can use regular paprika, but who wants to do that? I feel like smoked paprika should be the common paprika. So Lori, I think we might have talked about this some time ago, but about eggs, because there are always varying things about eggs. Now we hear, yeah, eggs are a great source of protein, but then, there's always that question of too many eggs or too much eggs, or, different things when it comes to eggs and cholesterol.
Right. You do hear that. There's, 217 milligrams of cholesterol in one egg yolk. And so a limit that was set by American Heart Association was 250 milligrams per day. So, one egg kind of ate up your entire dietary cholesterol allotment. We've kind of changed our tune on that some, but there's still a recommendation around moderation. So a couple of eggs every other day looks to be absolutely fine.
Every other day.
Yeah. Or an egg a day. You know what I mean? But most people, I find that most people eat a couple with eating them. And so in regards to that moderation idea, we just say a couple every other day. That would make it so you're still kind of falling into those ranges of the concerning components. I don't know that I would worry about it too much. There's so many redeeming qualities in that egg in regards to the macronutrient distribution, and then there's compounds in the yolk that actually work to stabilize blood sugar for up to 36 hours. So we know they're very therapeutic for some instances and some conditions.
Now I'm flipping these over, but if you like a sunny side up egg, I would literally just turn it off after you've gotten solidified the bottom of it. I would turn it off and then like put a lid over that, and that's going to help to cook the top of it per se, and you have that really nice sunny side up style of your eggs. I'm checking on our cobbler here, putting our toasted oats and pecans on there, and I've taken the foil off. The fruit is nice and cooked. And we just add that topping to it, and then we'll just stick that right back in the oven just for a little bit so that we can kind of let it all marry together, get a little bit of brown of the topping without burning our pecans. And our eggs are done. And what I like to do is, this is a great brunch idea. So you got a little bit of leafy green salad greens or so. Put that on the bottom of the plate. Like so. Take your little pepper egg. And then, that avocado that we just opened up? We take the other half. We don't let it go to waste. Of course, you don't have to use the avocado, but it's just a nice visual aesthetic, healthy fat to go with this. And we're just going to add a couple slices to our dish, like so. If you have some nice, like I said, cilantro or parsley or so, you can definitely use that.
Gorgeous.
So a really great, simple, easy breakfast, brunch idea.
The presentation is nice too.
And you set that out for a brunch, I mean, you really wow your guest or your family members, and it's fully healthy. I mean, it's, you have the protein from the egg, but then everything else is vegetables. So you're getting some great nutrients, you're getting some great flavors, and you can't go wrong with that. And that took you no time at all.
Nope.
That's what it's all about. Any questions on that? We'll pull our cobbler so you guys can see what that looks like. Yum. We have our nice cobbler.
Gorgeous.
Like I said, if you need a little bit of something, then you just, maybe take some, a dollop of vanilla Greek yogurt or something like that. And, a dollop of that on top. And you don't have to feel guilty about it. And voila, this is a nice summer type of dish that I'm telling you, your friends and family will love you for.
Beautiful.
So we have three very simple but very full of nutrients superfoods. So these three recipes really highlighting some great superfood ingredients that will kickstart your day, kickstart your health and your body. So if you utilize these things, we had eggs and the peppers, we had these great peaches and the cherries and the cobbler, and then of course the quinoa and the kale. You can't go wrong with those things, and of course the oats with the cobbler also. So these are really great ways and simple, easy recipes in order to be able to still maintain a life of wellness, but not compromising good flavor and delicious dishes.
Very nice.
Any remaining questions? If there aren't, we definitely appreciate everyone's participation and joining us today. We appreciate you tuning in, and hopefully you've been inspired in some way to try these out. The recipes are on the website. You can find those, all three of these recipes. Make sure you check those out, print them out, try them in your own kitchens. And if you try them, we always ask that if you try any of the recipes that we've shared with you, feel free to let us know, tag Cancer Support on Instagram or Facebook. Send an email or so that if these recipes have been beneficial to you. If you've tweaked them or done something different, added your own little spin or twist to them, let us know that also, because it's all about creativity. And if you've been inspired in some certain way, hey, it might inspire me. So definitely share with us your journey with these recipes. We appreciate you, and we are here for you in any capacity that you need.